Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a minute. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, if he loved me, I wouldn't be confused. But let me help you understand something today. A man in love doesn't always say it, but he will always show it. And just because he's quiet, busy, or not blowing up your phone every 5 minutes does not mean he's ignoring you. See, men love differently. We don't always express love with words. We express it with behavior. When a man is in love, he listens even when you think he's not. He remembers little details you mentioned weeks ago, not because he's trying, but because your words matter to him. A man who's not in love forgets. A man who is in love remembers. Let me explain this clearly, because this is where most people get confused. Men are not wired to express love the same way women do. While many women communicate love through words, reassurance, and emotional conversations, men often communicate love through what they do. This doesn't make their love weaker, it makes it different. A man may not say, "I love you" every day, but if his actions consistently show care, responsibility, and effort, that is his language of love. When a man loves you, he thinks in terms of responsibility. He asks himself, even unconsciously, how can I make her life easier? That might look like fixing things for you, helping you solve problems, or stepping in when you're overwhelmed. He may not sit you down and pour out his feelings, but he will make sure you're okay. That is love in motion. Men often feel love as a duty to protect, provide, and support, rather than as something to constantly talk about. A man in love also shows consistency. He does what he says he's going to do. He shows up when he promises to show up. He checks in not because he's bored, but because you're on his mind. This consistency is not loud or dramatic, but it is powerful. Words can be said in a moment. Actions require effort over time. That's why a man who acts consistently is showing a deeper level of emotional investment than someone who only talks. Another way men show love through actions is by adjusting their behavior. When a man cares about you, he becomes more thoughtful. He may change small habits, manage his temper better, or make decisions differently because he knows how they affect you. Men don't easily change for people they don't value. If he is modifying his lifestyle, priorities, or reactions to keep peace with you, that is not accidental. That is love at work. Men also show love by being present, even when they don't know what to say. When you're upset, a man may not have the perfect words, but he stays. He listens quietly. He sits with you. To him, being there is the solution. Silence in these moments is not emotional absence. It is his way of holding space, even if he struggles to express emotions verbally. Finally, understand this. A man who loves you may not always be expressive, romantic, or emotionally fluent, but he will be reliable. He will invest time, energy, and effort. He will take actions that prove you matter in his life. And while words can be beautiful, actions are harder to fake. When you learn to read a man's behavior instead of only listening to his words, you begin to see love that was there all along. Let's talk about memory, because this is one of the quietest yet strongest indicators of a man being in love. When a man remembers the small details about you, it's not accidental and it's not forced. It happens because emotionally, you occupy space in his mind. Men don't consciously decide to remember things. They remember what matters to them. So when he recalls something you mentioned casually, your favorite food, a story from your childhood, a fear you opened up about, it's because you registered with him on a deeper level. A man in love listens differently. He may not always respond with long emotional feedback, but he absorbs information. While you're talking, he's processing, storing, and connecting dots. You might think he wasn't paying attention because he didn't react the way you expected, but later, when he brings up something you said weeks ago, it surprises you. That's when you realize he was listening all along. That kind of listening comes from emotional investment, not politeness. Remembering details also shows consideration. If he avoids things that make you uncomfortable or makes an effort to include things you enjoy, that's memory in action. It could be as simple as not scheduling plans on a day he knows is hard for you, or choosing a restaurant he remembers you like. These are not grand romantic gestures, but they are intentional. A man who doesn't care won't bother to remember because it requires mental and emotional effort. When a man is in love, your words carry weight with him. He remembers your boundaries because he respects you. He remembers what hurt you because he doesn't want to be the cause of that pain. This is especially important because men who are emotionally detached often repeat the same mistakes. A man who loves you learns from what you say and adjusts his behavior accordingly. That learning comes from memory, and memory comes from care. Men also remember emotional moments more than people realize. He remembers how you reacted when you were happy, when you were disappointed, and when you were vulnerable with him. These moments stay with him because they create emotional connection. Even if he doesn't talk about those memories openly, they influence how he treats you moving forward. He becomes more protective, more gentle, more aware. Most importantly, when a man remembers details about you, it means you are not just a part of his present, you are part of his mental landscape. You live in his thoughts when you're not around. He doesn't need reminders because your presence has already left an impression. And in a world full of distractions, attention is one of the most valuable forms of love. When a man remembers you in the smallest ways, he's quietly telling you that you matter more than you realize. Consistency is one of the most misunderstood signs of love, especially in a world where people equate affection with constant texting, calling, and nonstop attention. But real love is not about how often a man reaches out in a day. It's about whether he shows up in the same dependable way over time. A man who truly cares may not always be loud or overly expressive, but his presence in your life is steady. You don't have to guess where you stand with him because his actions don't change with his mood. A man who is emotionally invested makes himself reliable. When he says he'll call, he calls. When he says he'll be there, he shows up. This kind of follow-through takes effort, and effort is a form of love. Anyone can be intense for a short time, but consistency requires intention. It means he's thinking ahead, managing his time, and making room for you in his life. That's not something a man does casually or without care. Many people confuse inconsistency with mystery or independence, but inconsistency often signals uncertainty. A man in love does not enjoy leaving you anxious or confused. He understands, even if he doesn't articulate it, that emotional stability matters. So he does what he can to maintain a predictable rhythm in how he treats you. You may not hear from him every hour, but you hear from him regularly. You may not see him every day, but when plans are made, they're kept. Consistency also shows up during difficult moments. When stress hits, work piles up, or life becomes overwhelming, a man who cares doesn't disappear. He may communicate less, he may be quieter, but he doesn't vanish. He finds a way to stay connected, even if it's brief. That's the difference between being busy and being absent. Love finds ways to remain present, even under pressure. Another important part of consistency is emotional behavior. A man in love doesn't treat you wonderfully one day and coldly the next without explanation. His respect for you remains stable. His tone remains considerate. Even during disagreements, there is a baseline of care. That emotional steadiness creates safety, and safety is one of the deepest expressions of love. Consistency builds trust over time. It reassures you that what you're experiencing is real, not temporary. Words can be convincing, and attention can be intoxicating, but neither of those mean much if they disappear without warning. A consistent man is quietly telling you that you are part of his life, not just a moment in it. Love that lasts is not dramatic, it is dependable, steady, and rooted in showing up again and again. Emotional protection is one of the clearest signs that a man truly loves you, even though it often goes unnoticed. A man who cares deeply is sensitive to how his words, actions, and decisions affect your emotional well-being. He may not always know the perfect thing to say, but he knows what not to do. He avoids crossing lines that would hurt, embarrass, or diminish you, especially in front of others. That awareness doesn't come from fear, it comes from respect. When a man is emotionally invested, he becomes mindful of your feelings. He may pause before speaking when he's angry, choosing restraint over release. That restraint is not weakness, it's emotional maturity. Men who don't care say whatever comes to mind and deal with the consequences later. A man in love, however, understands that careless words can leave lasting wounds, so he learns to control his tone, his reactions, and his impulses. Emotional protection also shows in how he handles conflict. Instead of trying to win an argument, he focuses on resolution. He listens, even when it's uncomfortable. He may struggle to express himself clearly, but his intention is not to hurt you. He seeks understanding rather than dominance. This shift in mindset happens because your emotional safety matters to him as much as his own pride. A loving man also protects you from unnecessary stress. He doesn't dump chaos into your life or involve you in problems that could be avoided. If something is heavy, he tries to handle it before it reaches you, or at least prepares you gently. This doesn't mean he hides things. It means he cares about timing, tone, and emotional impact. That level of consideration reflects deep attachment. Another powerful form of emotional protection is loyalty. A man who loves you does not entertain situations, conversations, or people that could threaten your peace. He sets boundaries without being asked. He corrects disrespect even when you're not present. That protection isn't loud or performative, it's internal. It comes from knowing that representing you well is part of loving you. Even in moments when he makes mistakes, emotional protection shows in accountability. He apologizes sincerely. He reflects. He makes an effort to do better. A man who doesn't care avoids responsibility. A man who loves you is willing to face discomfort if it means restoring your sense of safety and trust. At its core, emotional protection is about care beyond convenience. It's about choosing compassion over ego and thoughtfulness over impulse. When a man consistently guards your feelings, even in subtle ways, he's demonstrating a love that goes deeper than words. When a man truly loves you, your growth does not intimidate him, it inspires him. Instead of feeling threatened by your success, he feels proud to stand beside you. This is because love shifts a man's mindset from competition to partnership. He no longer measures himself against you, he measures himself with you. Your progress becomes something he celebrates, not something he fears losing control over. A man who supports your growth pays attention to your dreams. He asks questions, remembers what you're working toward, and checks in on how things are going. Even if he doesn't fully understand your goals, he respects them. That respect is crucial. Men who don't care often dismiss ambition or minimize it. A man in love encourages you to go after what lights you up because your happiness matters to him. Support also shows up during difficult moments. Growth is not always glamorous. It comes with setbacks, self-doubt, and exhaustion. A loving man doesn't disappear when things get hard. He becomes more patient, more reassuring, and more present. He reminds you of your strength when you forget it yourself. Sometimes his support is verbal, and sometimes it's quiet, helping you manage responsibilities so you can focus, or simply staying close when you feel overwhelmed. Another sign of genuine support is emotional security. A man who loves you does not need to control or limit you to feel secure. He trusts you. He trusts your intentions and your loyalty. Because of that trust, he doesn't feel the need to compete with your independence or success. Instead, he feels grounded, knowing that your growth adds value to the relationship rather than taking away from it. A loving man also adapts as you evolve. People change as they grow, and a man who cares makes space for that change. He doesn't try to freeze you in an earlier version of yourself. He listens, adjusts, and learns who you're becoming. That flexibility is a powerful form of love because it requires humility and emotional strength. Most importantly, a man who supports your growth wants you to win, even if your success requires sacrifice from him. He's willing to adjust schedules, priorities, or routines because he sees a bigger picture. He understands that love isn't about holding someone back. It's about walking alongside them, as they move forward. When a man encourages your dreams, respects your ambition, and stands firm during your struggles, he's showing a love that is secure, mature, and deeply rooted in partnership. When a man includes you in his future, it's one of the most meaningful signs that his feelings run deep. Men are naturally cautious about long-term commitments, not because they lack emotion, but because commitment represents responsibility. So when a man begins to speak about tomorrow, next year, or long-term plans and naturally places you within them, it shows that he has already made room for you in his life, mentally and emotionally. This inclusion doesn't always come in dramatic declarations. Often, it shows up in subtle language. He says we instead of I. He talks about trips, goals, or life changes with the assumption that you'll be there. These moments may seem casual, but they reveal his internal thinking. A man does not plan around someone he sees as temporary. Planning requires stability, intention, and emotional investment. A man who sees you in his future also considers how decisions will affect you. Before making choices about work, location, finances, or lifestyle, he thinks about the impact on the relationship. He may ask your opinion or simply factor you in quietly. That awareness reflects respect and emotional attachment. You're no longer an addition to his life, you're part of the equation. Future inclusion also shows in how he introduces you to his world. He connects you with friends, family, and people who matter to him. This isn't about social validation, it's about integration. He wants the important areas of his life to overlap with yours because he doesn't see a separation between his present and his future with you. Another important sign is patience. A man who envisions a future with you is willing to build slowly and correctly. He's not rushing recklessly, but he's also not avoiding commitment. He invests time, effort, and consistency because he understands that something meaningful is being built. Short-term thinking leads to shortcuts. Long-term thinking leads to care. Even during uncertainty, a man who loves you doesn't emotionally detach from the future. He may not have everything figured out, but he reassures you through actions and words that you are not temporary. He stays engaged in conversations about growth, challenges, and plans because he sees you as someone worth planning with. When a man naturally includes you in his future through words, decisions, and integration, it's a powerful sign of love. It means he's not just present for the moment. He's emotionally invested in building something that lasts with you.